What's up? It is Eric Spivak from New Friendship Tech here once again with Blockster Media as well as Genzio and some of our other partners that are highlighting some of the most innovative projects in the space. We are here with Jason from Datagram, and I couldn't be more excited to hear some of his opinions and ideas on the future of things, because I don't know if the hopium is still a thing or if we're getting hit with very harsh reality checks, but Jay,
¿Por qué no los dos?
Muy poquito problem. It's no problem. It's small problems, big answers.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the space. Looking forward to having this conversation.
Thank you.
What do the people need to know in regards to Datagram and what you are doing on a bird's eye view?
Sure. So essentially, what Datagram is it's an intelligent coordination layer that brings together latent resources across the internet and serves them up for demand. So you could think of us as a DPIN for DPINs almost. We have created something called the Datagram core substrate, which we provide free of charge for other DPINs that basically makes them into real DPINs instead of sort of the heartbeat machines of sadness that most DPIN networks regrettably are. Brings together all of their uptime and usage on chain and makes it so that they can focus on whatever the thing is that they do, whether it's games or music or, people have a tendency to run out these node sales because they use them as a fundraising mechanism, right? But then once they've raised the funds, they don't actually know about the decentralization part, and so that sort of falls by the wayside. We want to fix that because we believe that a decentralized internet is the way to go in the future, and we're gradually getting there with the increase in the power of sort of edge compute infrastructures and the decrease in costs of bandwidth and storage and things like that. And so having an actually truly decentralized internet's the future, and we're helping build that.
So you don't like major corporations and oligarchs and
I'm a big fan. I
love
a
monopoly over.
Yeah, 100%.
What about space right now? There's so much of it.
So much space. If we could just have somebody that owns it, that'd be great. Yeah.
I think I know a guy.
You do? Yeah.
He's got a social platform. He's also kind of putting a blanket over the internet right now.
It's good times. It's good.
Yeah. What a time to be alive. So
dude, it's wild. You ever think about that? The whole time to be alive thing. You're probably close to the same age as me, right? I'm thinking. The world has changed so much. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think that right now we have a privilege and opportunity to talk to real people behind the scenes.
Yes.
But AI chatbots are a perfect example of that, where it's going to cost you to talk to a real person. Yeah. And anything and everything that used to be kind of taken for granted is now going to be commoditized, and you're going to get priced out potentially for the premium versions of these things. Mm-hmm. And I used to say, just because everything could be an NFT doesn't mean everything needs to be an NFT.
Correct.
Just because everything can have a metaverse doesn't mean it needs to have a metaverse, right?
Yes.
And so with tokens and tokenize everything and DPIN and real world assets in the world that we're in today, we're seeing a lot of this fluff being just stretched out and used in so many different ways. So that said, I want to reel it back into specifically DPIN, which I don't know if there is a layman's terms way of describing it to people, because I think the narrative and ideas around it have kind of gotten a little murky.
It's gotten extremely murky.
Can you give a focused iteration or description of what DPIN technology is?
Sure. So imagine DPIN as being a massively decentralized cloud infrastructure, where instead of having a bunch of rack servers that are owned by one company, powered by one company's power feed, on one company's land, okay, you instead have a bunch of smaller devices spread across the entire internet that all have a certain amount of these resources that are necessary for whatever the job happens to be, and they are brought together and aggregated in a layer so that when something is fed to them, rather than it going to a single computer in a data center, it goes to hundreds or thousands of computers, and you have parallel computing that makes it possible to achieve the same thing in increasingly close to the same amount of time.
Right. So almost like a peer-to-peer network, almost like
100%.
Ethernet and LAN used to work, and one helps the other, creates an ecosystem. And if one part of the ecosystem dies, the whole thing can still sustain on its own.
Correct.
And it's almost regenerative in a sense.
It is, yes, very much so.
And that's why I guess DPIN is being integrated into things like vehicles now, where people are driving from point A to point B, but in between that drive, there's data and information that could be
there's edge computing happening.
Right.
Where anytime, a good example of this, and I'm going to use a centralized example, but it will, I think, make the point. Anytime you look at Google Maps,
Yep.
okay, and you're going from point A to point B, you see the traffic reporting, right?
Yep.
That traffic reporting comes from a bunch of devices that are all reporting their speed along that pathway, right? Google then takes that and infers that there's a bunch of traffic. The best hack I ever saw of this was a dude in Brazil, I think it was, or it was in maybe it was like Brazil or Portugal. I feel like Portuguese was part of this conversation. But he took like 200 cell phones and he put them all in a little red flyer wagon and walked down the street. And Google interpreted that as a massive traffic jam, and so nobody was going down that street because it was just totally blocked off. But that's the sort of thing, the collection of data and pooling of resources from a bunch of smaller units to aggregate into something much larger.
That's cool. I mean, I normally just get a bunch of cones and set up a strip.
See, that's good too.
That stops traffic as well.
Just like absolute pro tip.
Yeah.
Like if you want to park, get a clipboard, put your city's crest on the clipboard and a hard hat, put that shit on your dashboard. You can park anywhere you want, nobody will ever stop you.
I throw warehouse parties and raves. I used to take cones out of my trunk. I used to spray paint red curbs. Did I say that? Yes, I said that. Because I need to be in and out of places very quickly. And I think that's in my head, like those little hacks and tricks and maneuvers are really how I look at cryptocurrency and blockchain and how I got into it as a way of kind of backdooring to getting what I wanted. And I remember in the early days of streaming, nobody understood what streaming was, and I watched Justin Kahn and Justin.tv and Mark Cuban and Broadcast.com, and I had my own platform called Freestyle Madness, which was a online open mic. And I was kind of getting door slam after door slam in my face as I'm bringing this to Warner, Universal, Sony, Viacom, and saying, I have the future of TV, film, and entertainment and music in my hands. There's 2,000 people from all over the world without even a webcam using this technology. I promise you want to give me a chance. And I'm 17 years old playing EverQuest, using PayPal to collect money and throwing it into this thing that who knows what the future is.
But OG, man.
It took so long for people to catch up and be like, hey kid, are you still working on that thing? And so I think DPIN in particular is something that's very understated, and because it is murky and people don't necessarily understand it, and the narrative is also shifting a lot because there's big companies getting big money and not necessarily allocating it to things that are tangible.
Well, one of the problems that we've seen in the DPIN space, and specifically when we talk about nodes, right, is that there's been the first major node sale, okay, was done by my previous company, okay. Gala did about $870 million in node sales in primary market revenue, which is just madness. But it was 100% retail, okay, which is a really important point because that's like just people coming in and getting involved because they believe in the ecosystem.
Right.
And that was great, and Gala did some pretty cool stuff with it. It got to the point where like 85% of all DHT routing across IPFS was running across Gala Founders nodes, which is, again,
crazy.
Madness. But subsequent, and unfortunately Gala really didn't do much with the nodes after that. And then there have been these subsequent node sales, and the way that they work really isn't via retail any longer. It's not about building a community or bringing in a bunch of different people. They're doing, all sorts of things like node swaps, where two projects will sell each other $10 million of each other's nodes to, bump numbers up and things like that. And it's not actually DPIN because it's not, decentralized. It's It's the
equivalent of a router.
Exactly. And so I think that what we need to do is, sorry, that was a great distracting singing in the background there.
Interesting.
What we need to do is we need to really zero in on what DPIN actually is. And what DPIN actually is it's a way to engage the community and give the community ownership of the actual infrastructure upon which their network is based. And if you do that, you take stuff out of the data centers, you take stuff out of the big centralized areas of control and walled gardens, you can have an actual free internet. And one of the cool things about Datagram is every time anyone connects across any resource, it's essentially a one-time use VPN tunnel. And so the whole thing is just this massively encrypted, peer-to-peer, point-to-point network. And that's really powerful because it creates opportunities for actual freedom that don't exist on the internet anymore.
Yeah, I think about, like, my brain goes to the blackouts that just happened, right?
Yeah.
And power outages, right? And I think about a lot of different solutions. I work with solar companies. I work with a lot of that space, and I feel like the solutions exist, but they're just not adopted because it's bad for business.
Yes.
Ironically.
100%.
Right? Because putting people over profit would make sense, but not for businesses, because business is business and Christmas is Christmas. Business as usual is,
Yes.
it's not a flaw, it's a feature.
Yes, of course.
So I think in that
dysfunction is intended here.
Exactly, organized confusion. So I think in the sense of what you're doing, you're essentially democratizing DPIN. In a way, you're making it more accessible for people all over the world to not have to deal with the the difficulties of setup and adoption and inclusion. But you're also saying that on a B2B side, for an enterprise level, it also is sufficient for that.
One of the cool things about what we do, is there's one of the things that I put together a few years ago is this concept called the entrepreneurial metagame. And what the entrepreneurial metagame states essentially is that the people that own the infrastructure are oftentimes going to be different from the people that own the node licenses, which are going to be different from the people that own the NFTs, which are going to be different from the people that play the games. If we were to look at this from a play and gaming perspective.
Right.
So you have essentially these four different cohorts with some degree of overlap, but pretty distinct cohorts. And with DPIN, you sort of have a similar thing. So you have the people that use the resources and you have the people that provide the resources, and they're oftentimes separate groups. We have what I call the protocol to business to consumer pipeline. And so our main focus is helping businesses succeed in better serving their customers.
Right.
Like, we're not worried about onboarding individual end users because
it doesn't matter.
just like you've never once picked up an app, like opened Uber and thought, oh gosh, I'm so glad that Uber's on AWS because it works so well. Nobody's ever done that, right? So what we do is we focus on making it so that the businesses can better serve their consumers.
Right.
And we recognize the core fact that, if we look at Amazon, if we're talking about ginormous, monolithic companies, the reason that Amazon has succeeded initially is not because Jeff Bezos wanted to sell books, right? It succeeded because Jeff Bezos created a way for other people to sell other stuff using his platform.
Right.
And so we at Datagram, we've made it possible to essentially come in, set up a company that operates and resells Datagram, pooled infrastructure.
Right.
So you collect fiat, you feed it into the token economy, and everybody wins.
Yeah.
It's a pretty elegant system.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I mean, I'm essentially the same when it comes to the Web 2 side of things, where I'm an artist for the business and a business for the artist. I help businesses optimize and maximize their communication and visual materials and branding and identity and how to reach a broader audience, and definitely make sure that it's accurate to what they're looking to express and what they do and why they do it, right? And then on the artist side, I'm helping them get their businesses in order and making sure they're checking boxes and dotting I's and crossing T's and not leaving any bags on the table. If I can automate that process and box it up and sell it, and then they can do the same and do the same and do the same, then everybody's winning.
Everybody wins, exactly.
It's all about ecosystem. I think ecosystem tied to the direct-to-consumer is the future of things.
I agree.
And what DPIN allows is a lot of ownership mixed with privacy, safety, security, and reinforcement.
Right.
And I think that's a scalable thing.
Yeah,
right?
agreed.
Which makes me disappointed and not surprised that so many companies out there decide to not do that.
It's pretty amazing.
Because it's second nature. It's already there for you. Right.
I think that the problem is, and this is, I've seen this happen so many times, crypto's really bad for this. Like, it's really bad for this. And I think it's just a human nature thing. But What was the Gordon Gekko quote? It's all about the velocity of money,
Yeah.
right? Like when you look at it from sort of a macro perspective, that is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Because what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to encourage the movement of resources through the ecosystem. And anywhere you have a point of massive aggregation of resources, you wouldn't think it does, but that serves as a significant bottleneck. And so when you have a company that exists and sort of sits over the top of a network extracting value, you end up with a situation where the entire ecosystem begins to suffer. So it's about, it's about, like you were talking about with artists leaving bags on the table, right? It's all about creating a system where every participant of that system maximally benefits. In almost like a Nash equilibrium sort of sense.
Yeah.
And everybody wins.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do or it's not going to work.
Well, it's where's the losses, right?
Yeah.
Where are the holes in the umbrella? Where are the loose threads? Are you kicking the tires? And I think one of the reasons like we're here today is because of my new Friendship Tech series, which basically is just seeing that everything that we do for the most part is extractive. And that's because it's relatable to business and capital, right?
Right.
And generating revenue. So
well, that's the model that we've been taught, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's also a big part of where we're at now, where we're kind of unboxing, unpacking, and unlearning, and basically starting with the fresh, new, no fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Because every single day things are coming out that have never been done before, and AI is only going to get better than it was tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So we are in a digital renaissance with revolutionary technology.
Agreed.
And we're moving at light speed, like breaking speeds. So I think when you have people of character, integrity, ethics, and more like yourself that are playing in or participating in or contributing to this technology that is getting adopted by real people, places, and things, that's extremely important and significant for the direction of the future of things.
Agreed.
As long as it can become kind of a new industry standard. And I think right now the standards are very low.
Yes,
the bars
they are.
Very low because accessibility is very high. Accessibility is wide and far rather.
Yeah.
And I think there's a moment in time and an inflection point where too much access is harmful and bad, and that overexposure without guardrails or firewalls or prerequisites is one of the biggest problems that happened with NFTs, which then happened in tokens and meme coins, shit coins, etc. Happened with metaverses.
You mean like 1 million tokens a day on Pump Fund is not good for the industry?
Oh, what do you mean? It's the same like 3 people every day. Like they're great people. I promise they'll put the money back and they'll pull it away again.
For sure.
But they'll do it in their sleep just to show, just to
show,
dunk on you that much more.
Yeah.
But I think like even models of that nature, I think about, dare I say, the Trump token, but like that could have been
I believe what you're talking about is the best token.
I think
it's the best token.
I think
it's the shiniest token. Everyone knows. They look at it, they say it's so golden. It's so shiny. They say, Donald, I love your token.
I think you might be fired.
I might be fired. You're fired.
Might be fired.
Might be fired. Okay.
But we're in Dubai. We have a new. I hear you're getting a new building up.
It's beautiful. It's very shiny. It's going to be shiny. I like shiny things.
And the way that you get into it is by you have to have an allocation of the token that you launched.
Obviously, this is the way it works.
Amazing.
Everyone should have bought that at the beginning. I told them. Actually, I didn't tell them, but
Got it. Yeah, I mean,
dude, when that launched, I
couldn't believe it.
I couldn't. I saw it at like such a low market cap, and I'm like, nah, it's not real.
I was like, no way.
And then I saw it at like $1 billion. I'm like, okay, this is silly. No way. Yeah.
And then yes way.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely way.
But the reason I bring that up and accessibility, right? So everybody and their mother suddenly cared about crypto.
Yeah.
Everybody and their father suddenly. That friend was like, why didn't you tell me about? I was like, you think I knew anything?
Yeah.
But then when I look at like the understanding of the tokenomics side of it, in my brain I'm like, if I'm going to be the president of the United States and I'm going to be launching a token, I'm going to create a token for every single every state.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tie it all together.
Yeah.
And that way, the place I used to live, that I grew up in, that I love and care about, that's on fire, or that's flooding, or dealing with hurricanes, or power, whatever it may be, almost like alumni from a school.
Right.
You can give back to that, and you can see transparently on chain that I am donating to that place that I care about to see them fix that problem. And at the end of the year, if that city or state is performing really well, guess what can happen? You can have an overflow of that capital to help that.
Oh, there's so many. This
I'm
is
just like, but anyways.
No, I originally got into crypto for something along these lines because I had done some disaster relief work in Haiti after the earthquake, and we were seeing situations where, excuse me, where there would be literally tens of millions of dollars flowing into the country. Okay, massive amounts of money coming to the country, zero getting to the people on the street. We were having people literally die of starvation, because they had nothing to eat because nothing came to it was a mess. It was just a total disaster. But anyway, like looking at this from the perspective of like, how do we fix some of these problems and create transparency? That's the power of this technology, and that's why I got involved like 13 years ago.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I guess with that said, what would you say Datagram or even yourself, business separated, what would you say is like the most important or valuable takeaway that you can give to the people? What would you say is like something of significance that they should hold on to, because you're definitely working in an industry that's changing the future?
Yeah, what I would say, and I've said this or variations of this previously, blockchain and crypto and Web3, okay, as much as I sort of hate the term Web3, that's another conversation, but is one of the only places in the world where you, as an individual, a random person, can have a profound impact on a project, on a team, on a community. And so one of the things that you can do, and this is sort of was very common in the very beginnings of crypto, and you see it less and less these days, is sort of the concept of like work for your bags. If you join a community, contribute to that community, help it grow. If you know how to code some stuff. If you know how to design some stuff. Cut a track, make a beat, do whatever it is that you do for that project, because that will have a profound impact. Crypto and blockchain and Web3 are at their core about community, and they have to be about community. It cannot be sort of this ivory tower thing where we have a few, people standing up there talking. It's everybody coming together that makes this the beautiful thing that it can be. And if we lose that, we've completely lost the plot, and then I don't know what we're doing here anymore. So, yeah.
The plot twist has been twisting, and the cliffhangers are there every day, every week, every month. I mean, I agree. I think you need community, culture, cultivation of those things. You need connection, you need creation. And the reason why a lot of these platforms fail is because they don't know how to connect with community, right?
Yes.
They don't invest in curators, they don't invest in creators, and consumers. And at the end of the day, we're seeing that right in front of us. You're either a consumer or you're a creator. Yeah. And you got to pick or choose. You could do a mixture of both, but realistically, you're either one or the other. We
recently just launched the Datagram Ambassadors program, and we're connecting with creators and KOLs. I mean, from like micro KOLs with a few hundred followers on Twitter, that are just really working and producing good content to some quite larger things. But for us, it's about building that community and that sense of group ownership that I think is really important.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no I in team, but sometimes you have to be the team until you can afford to have one. Yeah. But I do look at the spirit that's attached to cryptocurrency and blockchain and all things associated and adjacent is that it takes more than two to tango and to dance in this space, but you can start slow and start small, and it's really the only industry I've worked in a very long time that you get compensated for participation. Yeah. Whether you want to go all in and all day and night, or you just want to dabble and just get your feet wet. And I think that's kind of one of the great parts of tokens of things. It's like you're getting a membership club pass in a way to get in and get out. You get to free sample all of the universities and colleges that you might have gone to and see the social settings and the network and the narratives and the colorways of the logos of the characters and mascots and figure out who you want to ride for. And eventually, if you're playing your cards right and on the right side of history with all of this stuff, you'll have an army behind you ready to go to war for you. And I think that's the beauty of it, where I do see there is There is also a lot of negative stigmas and things of all passing of the buck and, you know, selling dreams that don't exist, and there is all that there, but where there's opportunities, there's going to be opportunists in any industry.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to ride the wave and roll with the punches here, and the opportunities still exist, and I think it actually gets better every day.
Yeah,
as
agreed.
as the noise kind of simmers and the static kind of disappears. So even on that end with the Datagram and with what you're looking for, speakers, influencers, KOLs, community managers, and more, what would the, I guess in a perfect world, where would you like to see that community and ecosystem grow to be, and what would you like it to accomplish?
Well, we are, I mean, there's all sort of the normal social places, you know, the Twitter and Telegram and Discord and things like that. We've used Discord as a tool for a long time because it has a pretty good ability to have a large number of participants, you know, engaging sort of in their own way, and you can do some pretty fun stuff with it. I'm always open to exploring new options and new venues, but really what it boils down to is what's best for the people. What do they enjoy the most? You know, where can they get together and play games and experience, you know, sort of their shared everything. So that's the way that we look at it.
And then, like, in a perfect world, what would you like Datagram to become?
So I think Datagram is laying the foundation for the new internet. That's what I think. I think that between the infrastructure deployed by our own community directly, and then the infrastructure deployed by the people who want to use the Datagram core substrate to deploy their own DPIN networks, which then aggregate and feed into a much larger network, I think we're probably credibly building out the foundation for what could potentially be a new internet, an actually decentralized internet. And so, you know, what I would like to see in the long run is, you know, the creation of a few new transport protocols and things like that that sort of go beyond the normal. I mean, we've had some of the same tech. I mean, we've been on TCP/IP for freaking how many decades now? Right. You know, I think there's some room for innovation here, and I'd like to, especially as we start coming up into, you know, the insanities of quantum computing and stuff like that. Like, I think that we're
just scratching the surface.
Yeah, just barely scratching the surface. I mean, but like back in the day, right? We would use centralized, like in the way back in the day, everyone hosted their own shit in their own bedroom. Right? Like you'd have a computer, you'd leave it on, your website would live on that thing, and you'd have to vacuum the thing out every, you know, 3 weeks because, you know, your cat hair would
still waiting on downloads to finish, still waiting on uploads to complete.
Nightmare. You know, so that was originally. Then you know, centralized services started coming online, and you started getting the AWSs of the world and the Azures of the world and all of this. And we did that because it was more efficient, it was more effective. But until it wasn't. And now we're at the point where like the computing that I have in my desktop is like insane. God tier compared to what I would buy from an S3 bucket or something like that, right? And I think a lot of people are in this situation. And so we just have such a tremendous, robust amount of infrastructure out there that is latent and just waiting to be tapped.
Yeah, the resources are unused. It's like if I'm a musician and producer and all I'm using is Ableton or Fruity Loops, GarageBand, Pro Tools, whatever, I don't touch CapCut or Final Cut or Adobe Premiere or Lightroom or anything else. It's like what's, you know, and I understand underused computers because I'm art, music, fashion. I have 3 that are dedicated to those industries. Yeah. But I understand, like, it's kind of like training a robot, right? In ChatGPT or Claude or DeepSeek. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, that's where Airbnb, that's where Uber, that's where if it's sitting around and not doing anything for you, let's give it to somebody else or figure out a way to give it the opportunity to make money in your sleep.
Exactly.
So I appreciate all of that, and I think it might be safe to say Datagrams is Web 4.0. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I know you
We
don't
actually,
hear it.
go Web 5 if we have to have
I'm
a
on
number.
7, so
Oh,
yeah.
there's another
and the
upgrade?
future's ugly. Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't
yeah.
upgrade to 7. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
I'll be in the next Black Mirror season, and we're talking about it there. We went from read, write, own. Now we're back to borrow, beg, and steal.
Oh, yeah,
And
there you
then, I can't tell you where 7 goes, but
It's
yeah,
it's one of those plot twists.
it's
Was it the butler in the pantry with the candlestick?
It's worse. It's,
Oh, no.
it's worse. It's twisted metal. But yeah, I appreciate the time here with you, Jason, and I look forward to seeing Datagram repave the landscape and foundations that we have for the internet. Because I mean, that's essentially what you're doing, and you're doing it and not trying it, which I applaud.
Yeah, with 1.2 million users, 200 companies. We actually started with the demand, so we're going to get there, guys.
Did you flex? Did you flex before you stretched on me? Or did you stretch before you flexed on me?
I mean, I don't like stretching. Look at me. This is not a body that is built
Okay.
for stretching. Okay,
Good.
I'm monolithic. Okay.
All good. All right. Well, the monolith is done speaking, and we hope you got a lot of information and value out of this. Hopefully, you check out Datagrams and Blockster Media and New Friendship Tech. Looking forward to chatting with you guys soon.
Thank you, guys.
Peace.